As a society, we obviously need more examples of just how broken and unfit for purpose our political system is, because I guess we haven't been hurt enough by it to force change. As you will now know, Jack Straw of the Labour Party and Sir Malcolm Rifkind of the We're All In It Together Conservative Party have been caught with wanting to get their snouts deep into the trough. Dubbed Cash for Access, they're both currently suspended from their parties and are now being investigated by the Parliamentary Standards Commission. Parliamentary Standards, if only, eh? Rifkind has come out and said that he expects to be reinstated quickly after suspension. And he probably will, because as he and Jack Straw say, they probably haven't broken any rules. Because the rules are written to allow the MPs to feather their own nests. The rules are a fucking disgrace. If they allow this to happen, which they do, just imagine what else MPs are getting up to without us knowing. Our system truly is broken for average Joe, but not for MPs. They just don't want to get caught. And as Jack Straw said, he was mortified about the Cash for Access scandal because he got caught. Not mortified because he was acting like a Trough snorting pig, but mortified because he got caught. Malcolm Rifkind is a Conservative MP. He is fairly old, and he is a Sir. He has all the credentials to be a paedophile. Is he? I haven't heard anything to suggest that he is, but he is in the red flag demographic for MP paedophiles. Rifkind, having been caught in this sting, hit back earlier by saying that voters actually wanted MPs to take up work outside their parliamentary duties. So, Rifkind believes in his own deluded mind that his voters want him to spend a certain amount of his working week that is already paid for in his salary as an MP to work for other companies. You try that in your job. Go and ask your boss if you can, instead of working the normal 40 hours a week, if you can work, say, 25 hours a week from now on, because you need to work for another company to gain experience. Oh, and don't forget to say you still want your full salary for the 40 hours, and you also want your virtually unlimited expenses count, but for only 25 hours, and see what they say. No one I know wants MPs to have a second income. If you don't like the salary, if you don't like the job, fuck off and do something else. Since when was being an MP a part-time job? Rifkind then actually said it is quite unrealistic to think MPs can live on simply $60,000 a year without looking for extra income. Yep, you did hear me correctly. He says that MPs simply cannot live on $60,000 a year. That's £5,000 a month before tax. That's of course if MPs actually pay any tax anymore. Today, I'm not so sure. I heard the moustached mountain John Pena say on BBC 5 Live earlier today that 60,000 sounds a lot, but in the boardroom it isn't. I'd say that if you want to earn more money, resign from an MP and go into business. But the narcissistic character of an MP prevents them from doing so. They just look to scam where they can and get away with it. But MPs don't live on 60,000 a year, do they? For starters, MP salaries, a salary for a full-time job, I'm almost certain that being a Member of Parliament is in fact a full-time position nowadays. The MP salary is about 67,000. MPs also have their cost of living paid for. Do you? MPs also have their utilities paid for. Do you? MPs have their food and eating out expenses paid for. Do you? MPs have all their travel expenses paid for. Do you? About the only thing that MPs can't claim back are trips to Elm Guest House, but I bet they even found a way around that. I would surmise that there is not one MP that just takes a basic wage. The £67,000 goes straight into their bank account because it's you and I who are the mugs that pay for everything else for these wankers. All told, I'm guessing the average amount of money an MP gleans from the taxpayer would be closer to 100 grand each. But for this mouthy little gobshite Rifkind, it gets worse. His salary for being a really great let's have nuclear war with Russia brain, a really great mind, so we're told, by his mum probably. Well, his salary for his full-time MP's job is 82,000. But on top of that, he has a second income for Adam Smith International, paying him £40,000 a year for 2 hours monthly meetings plus emails and travel. That's equivalent of 6 working days. So his total so far is 120,000 a year. Oh, and Rifkind has a third job for Unilever, who pay him £86,000 a year for 8 meetings a year, the equivalent of 24 days a year. Total so far, £208,000 a year. Oh, and Rifkind has a fourth job, Alliance Medical Group, who pay him £60,000 a year for 10 meetings, the equivalent of 5 days a year. Total so far, £268,000 a year. Oh, and Rifkind has a fifth job, LEK Consulting, who pay him £50,000 a year for 16 meetings, the equivalent of 16 days. Total so far, £318,000. Oh, and Rifkind has a sixth job for Dragoman Consulting, who pay him £25,000 for communication and London meetings, the equivalent of 6 days. So far that totals £343,000 a year. Oh, and Rifkind has a seventh job, flipping burgers in McDonald's, earning £6 an hour. He doesn't really, he's only got the 6 second income jobs. But by the time you add on a few expenses without receipts, I guess that Rifkind last year pulled in close to £400,000. Unfucking believable. You wonder why these companies bother to buy MPs, because that's what they do, they buy MPs. Well, look at this, here's an example. NHS contract awarded to private firm, despite rival bid being £7 million cheaper. The company that was awarded this contract? Alliance Medical Group, the very company that paid Mr. Malcolm Rifkind £60,000 last year. Paying Rifkind 60 grand is a small expense for Alliance Medical Group, who won that one contract because they know they've got at least 6,940,000 profit. It's not bad, is it? This is why companies buy and own MPs. Because that's what MPs are doing. They are literally pimping themselves to companies. Like Karen Danchuk pimping herself to the highest bidder. The system has to change. You hear the argument that, just like the parasitical bankers, if you don't pay a good salary for this full-time position, not part-time, full-time position, then you won't get the best people. Well, after cash for questions, after cash for access, after the expensive scandals, after MPs flipping homes and banking the profits, after allowing multinationals to pay no tax whilst hitting the most vulnerable the hardest, after setting up deals with banks that launder drug money and that help people evade tax, and of course up to 40 MPs raping and even killing children, and countless other examples of how MPs have been ripping the public off for decades. Have we really attracted the so-called best people this country can offer? Have we? Or have we just attracted a bunch of narcissistic, robbing, self-serving muppets? I believe the latter. They simply must go. I don't know how we're going to do it, but this lot have to go.